Welcome to another Learner's Mindset discussion. I'm Dr. Dwayne Hrapnick, and Dr. Talissa Thibodeau is with us today as always, but we have a guest, Dawn Shorts. Welcome to our discussion. Dawn, before we get going, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you, where are you, and how do you come to us, and why are you here?
Well, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Dawn Short. I am currently the Associate Director of Undergraduate Advising here at Lamar University. I actually found my way to the ADL program whenever I was serving as the advisor for this program. So as I was signing students up to participate in the program, I'm the type of person that likes to understand so I can explain better to others. And so I started watching the learner mindset discussions and drank the Kool-Aid and became a student of the program, completely bought in and believe in what you're trying to do. And that's how I came to be a part of the ADL program myself.
Okay, well, I appreciate that and welcome. Just for those who aren't familiar with Lamar University and the ADL program, the ADL stands for the Applied Digital Learning Program. It's a Master's of Applied Digital Learning. And it was the replacement to an original program that Dr. Thibodeau and I built, which was called the Digital Learning and Leading Program. And essentially, these programs at Lamar are really about helping people build effective learning environments that facilitate learning. And in those programs, and especially in the ADL program, we have a couple of fundamental ideas. One is the learner's mindset, which is this notion that you take challenges and turn them into opportunities. And in order to have a learner's mindset, you have to change your thinking about learning, change your approach to learning, and you have to recognize and incorporate the power of the learning environment. And to augment that, we've also have an approach called creating a significant learning environment where we give our learners choice, ownership, and voice through authentic learning opportunities. It's those authentic learning opportunities that our students get to build. And Dawn, just to kick things off, can you tell us about your authentic learning opportunities? And this is really important to us because you're not a conventional students. About 60% of our students come from the traditional educational environment, whether it's K-12 or higher ed or the college system of some sort, but you come from more of a professional environment. Can you just tell us what you do? And then maybe talk about your initial experience and how things were for you.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. For me, I started the ADL program with the innovation course, really had to evaluate what impact I was hoping to make to better the world and improve learning outcomes. And of course, I looked at my own industry as an advisor, trying to help students. I, up to that point, had worked with incoming students, upperclassmen, and then graduate students. And it really felt like students didn't always embrace learning opportunity. They tend to look to someone to tell them what to do, step by step. Where's that checklist? A, B, C, what do I need to do? You do it for me. That sounds even better. And so honestly, just out of sheer desperation for how to help students take initiative in their learning, how to guide them to information, my own innovation is about trying to facilitate that learning, to provide those resources, but also encourage your research on that inquisitivism, seeking out information themselves and asking questions and directing their learning. So I created the advisor that cares as I kind of reflected upon my own why. Why do I do what I do? Why do I care? And it really just all stems from a place of caring for others and trying to help others find their path. And so I hope that answers your question.
Well, it does. And you mentioned the word why, and I immediately saw Talissa's eyebrow go up. Talissa really appreciates the why. Talissa, do you have any questions about what Dawn is doing, and also maybe touching on that why component?
Yeah, I am a big proponent of people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And as you know, that's Simon Sinek's words. Everything that I do, every action that I take, every word that comes out of my mouth speaks to my why. And I think that people are missing that. When you're doing that checklisty job of this is what I do and how I do it, let me get it done and leave at 5 o'clock. there is no inspiration there. And I think to really grow into yourself and help you understand what motivates and inspires others, you have to really grow into your own why, believe it, and move on it, right? And build everything around it. But the thing I think that I was thinking about as you were speaking is you have that intrinsic capacity to learn. You do. And that leads back to the learner's mindset. I went and I had a conversation with some folks earlier today, and it was interesting, the resistance to learning, even in a higher education setting. Oh, faculty, they don't want to learn this. And I stopped and I said, did you hear what you just said? They don't want to learn this. Faculty they don't want to learn this. And he goes, oh, did I really say that? I said, yeah. So faculty are in this place where that intrinsic capacity to learn may not always be there, but I think it leads back to that why and finding why you're doing what you're doing so that you can then figure out how to best do that. And then in turn that produces what you're looking to do, right? And going to your innovation plan, kind of going back to that and revisiting a conversation we had, I do recall when you said, you had some challenges to begin with in your first, glimpse in your innovation plan. You wanted to change the world. You wanted to change one learner at a time, right? And then you realized, I got to backpedal a little bit on that. And it's not so much about providing those opportunities for your advisors as it is for them to start thinking about how they can then build those opportunities for themselves. And I think that you made that connection whenever we talked last. I can't do all this myself. They will have to take some ownership in learning, right? And that's going to be, a cycle of change that through your innovation plan, I think you can get there and do those things, even if it occurs in a timing different than you expect, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was thinking as you were talking.
I was going to say, I can piggyback off of that. So the evolution of my role as a student, I really started as an advisor. How could I use my innovation for my own selfish purposes to better students' experience? And then I got to the organizational change course about the time that I got brave enough to apply for the associate director of advising position. And so now that scope has really shifted from just one advisor and how I can help change the world to now a team of advisors and how can I help empower them to help change the world. So exactly tying into that conversation that we had about the shift of not just my own thinking, but now how do I help people find their why? How do I plug people into their own innovative ideas? Mm-hmm. And it is a challenge, just like we experience in that first couple of courses. I've asked my staff and they're like, oh, well, A, B, C, D. And it's like, no, why? Like deeper. It's so challenging to get past that 8 to 5 surface level, this is my job, and get really down into that Simon Sinek, why do we do what we do?
But I have to say, I think you're doing a lot of the right things. And I think and the reason I say that is a lot of getting to that deeper why is building relationships with people to begin with. So what I've learned to do is build relationships with people, number one. Number two, when they see you model that behavior, but also consider what influences them. I'm always going back to the 6 sources of influence in the influencer model. What motivates this person? Is it personal ability? Is it what is that? Yes. Is it social motivation? When I can figure that out, and sometimes it's not always a direct and perfect fit, it's something close to it, or it's a combination of a couple of those. Then I start to go, okay, so this is kind of how I can help them start, I guess, traversing or change, making that change, crossing that bridge, and you build that relationship, you figure out what motivates them. Then those deeper conversations can start to occur. And I think that is one of the best tools I've had in my role to, as you say, be brave enough to help people build their why. Matter of fact, I'm about to probably blow my entire team's mind next week when I run my beginning of the year in June staff meeting. And all of these ideas are going to come together for them. They're going to, so you're not really leading unless you're influencing and you're making some sort of change, and someone's going to give you pushback. Someone's going to give you pushback. I used to think everything should be so easy. Nah. And Dr. H was a good mentor for me during, even before I took this role, because we've learned together through things that nothing is ever easy. You're not really impacting change if you're not, pushing the boundaries a little bit. And I'm learning that and growing in that area too. But
I just want to make a couple connections here and get you to sort of respond to a challenge that I'm seeing. And I just want to make sure that I'm clear. Initially, with your innovation plan, you wanted to build, I know this because I've worked with you on this, and you built an e-portfolio or an online resource that you were using to help advise students. And so you had mentioned that one of your goals were to help the students become more proactive, right? So from Dr. Thibodeau's and my perspective, that's taking ownership of their learning. But from your perspective, when you're advising students, you want them to seek things out, be proactive, take ownership, take control, really know what they're doing. And so I know in those initial stages, you embraced that, and once you got it, you were building, and you built a wonderful resource. And so while it was just you building this wonderful tool that you were using to help your students and help you in the advising process, that was manageable, right? And I saw the success, and I saw your excitement, and it was working well. And then you had to go and blow it all up and switch to
I
the
know.
right. So here's the question. It was easy to control what you were doing, and you did have a clear why, and that is something that I knew you got. And there's a small group of educators who really do believe it's our responsibility, whether we are in administration, which is what you are, or we're faculty, where we have an opportunity to engage learners and help them chase and find their dreams, and then build on those dreams, and then do something wonderful in the world, right? That's a big why. And I think that's where you land. Now that you're in a position of administration where you are working with and coordinating other advisors, what's been the biggest challenge in getting them to do what you did?
Uh, Work in progress. It very much. Go
Is it
ahead.
one of those, well, I'll tell you in 6 months or a year? I'm sorry, I'm just joking.
Exactly. Yeah, that. It is very much what Dr. Thibodeau alluded to. I'm still really in the relationship building stage. I stepped into a role in a fairly low morale, high turnover, lots of challenges in this area. And so for me, it was really not just coming in and being the change agent, but really taking some time to get to know the staff, trying to find their strengths, trying to find their passions. Even now, whenever I go to the staff and I'm like, what are you interested in? What would you like to train new employees on? It's like, well, what do you need me to do? And it's like, no, I want to know what you're passionate about. I want to know what change you want to make in the world. And I want to utilize you in that way so that you find fulfillment in what we do, because it can become very rote and repetitive. And that's not life-changing for the student, and it's not life-changing for the advisor. So it really was a shift for me to how can I take all the work that I was trying to do on an individual level and now empower the team to see the benefit of taking those transactional components, that checklist stuff out of our day-to-day, building videos, building resources, building other ways to still deliver that, so that they can now have a deeper transformative conversation with the student, those, metacognitive, making sense out of their learning experience. Why do I have to sit through this history class? I just graduated from high school, so it's still very much a work in progress. I'm still in the early stages of trying to be transparent and being humble and being very open with them that we're creating this together. I'm not here to tell you how to advise or how to do your job. I'm here to ask you what brings you joy, what makes you happy, what makes you come to work every day, why are you in this profession, and then build from there.
And Dawn, I have to comment on that because that can be such a shock tremor for people to show the head won't go where the heart hasn't been. Everything starts with the heart. I'm reading a book right now given by our president who talks about the heart, right? So I see that our vision is coming alive in spots in different places at Lamar, but it can be a shock tremor for a staff who's so used to being in I'm going to call it a cold environment where it's do this, and this, and that's your job. And when I get this, I actually had to grapple with my team to let them know that their input mattered, that I valued that we do everything from bottom up and not top down, right? Everything is team-based. And I had to, they don't believe me. Like, really? You're going to take well, yeah, this is ours, right? This is not my college. This is not your college. This is our students, right? So when you really shift that focus to, you're making, what you're doing is you're making the student centered through your advisors. And I think that's a process. That's not just going to happen overnight. Even 2 years in now, my team is still grappling with this. You mean I can email this person directly? Absolutely. Build relationships through these challenges. This is your opportunity, right?
Yes.
And I think helping people see that, they start to learn to trust you. You start to move on those motivations and what they want to do. And they start thinking, what does Dawn have that I don't have? And so I think, and it's hard. It's not easy. It's not easy to have that growth in leadership, but you're making those strides and those changes. Matter of fact, someone said to me this morning, oh, that Dawn Short, because I said I had a meeting. She's making some big waves over there in advising. Yes, there you go. So even if you think in that moment you're not making an impact, you are. So I wanted to kind of share that.
Thank you very much. I know I constantly reflect. I had Dr. Kelly Grogan for one of my classes, and she talked about imposter syndrome, and I very much grapple with imposter syndrome in my role because I still see myself as just an advisor. Who am I to come in and try to make changes and to make things better? But who better? Someone who was boots on the ground, lived it, worked it, knows the challenges. And the word that just rings true to me is opportunity. Day in, day out. What opportunity comes from this challenge? What can we make better from this? So it really is just that humility to not say, I'm here and I have all the answers and you do what I say. But instead, what do you see? What do you think? What do you want? What would make this better? Because they're going to come to me with things that I've never even considered. And what better way to grow and shape what we're trying to do here by changing lives?
Now, if I'm hearing this correct, I'm hearing both of you talk about the fact that when you move into this new position, I know, Talissa, you're a couple of years into your dean's position at the Honors College, and so you've gone through something very similar. The first thing that I'm hearing is that it's about the relationships. It's about establishing those relationships. It's about working together. It's about people. It isn't necessarily just about the job or the task. It's about people. And the challenge I'm hearing is getting people to shift from tell me what I need to do to recognizing that they're part of a team and they may know what needs to be done better than you might need.
For sure.
Right? Because of their experience and knowledge. And so getting people to shift from that checklister to the team player is challenging. And it's equally challenging when you're in a support type of a position, in the same way that as educators, we have to shift from this is what we're delivering in terms of the content to, well, no, this is who the student is, and this is who the student is going to become. That student-centered perspective. We all talk about being student or learner-centered, but it's really hard to actually move in that direction. Now, I'm currently experimenting with a brand new course on feed forward, and when I say feed forward, Dawn, you're going to go, oh, okay, well that's a video that I get when Dr. H provides guidance and instruction on how I can improve something. So rather than write out instructions or feedback like you traditionally get on your assignments, I create these videos, these feed forward videos. Well, I've been teaching a course on that. I've been experimenting with that. And one of the things that I ask learners to do, or my educators that are working with me, that I'm helping them move in the first module, is recognize that you have to help the learner to prepare to receive the feedback. And it's a matter of moving them from the growth mindset, the fixed mindset, to the growth mindset, but then also recognizing, well, the growth mindset just starts, and then you have to move them into the learner's mindset, right? And I've been doing this now for the past 4 or 5 months and looking at the program, experimenting with it. And one of the biggest challenges I'm facing is that it's easy to get people to go from the fixed mindset to the growth mindset, because all you have to do is say, well, just think about yet. I'm not there yet.
Yes.
And they all, oh, that's wonderful. I can do that. But then moving them from that growth mindset to the learner's mindset, where you have to ask them to think differently about learning, take a different approach to learning, and then that whole learning environment perspective is much more challenging. Are you seeing that same thing with your with the people who work with you, moving them into that idea from a fixed to growth mindset, and then getting them to that next step is even more challenging? Or is that just a scenario that I'm facing as an educator? What are your thoughts?
I would say the most that I have to contribute is probably more from my experience as a student in the ADL program. I have 3 courses left until graduation. And what I see in my cohort is, even though we're getting near the end of the program, students are still fixed mindset or growth mindset. And it's really trying to help our cohort move forward, like, hey guys, don't forget everything we've been learning up until this point. Like, we're supposed to live it, eat it, breathe it, not just learn it for the class. And so it really is a challenge for not advisors, but just people in general, ADL students, to even drink their own Kool-Aid. We can write papers and blogs and feedback for each other, but somehow we miss the step of like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to go seek information for myself. I'm supposed to go challenge resources and explore documents that I see in the literature and those types of things. So like, they're still waiting for the instructor to give them feed forward. Well, I don't know if I can move on to the next assignment because I haven't received feed forward yet to know if I'm on the right track. Well, it's your innovation, it's your project, it's your baby. So feedback will help you make that better, but you shouldn't wait and be paralyzed because you have not yet received that feed forward. It's challenging people to embrace learning. I think that's across the board, whether it's employees, whether it's students, whether it's K through 12, it's really adopting that learner's mindset to seek information, to grow, to keep challenging yourself.
If I can comment on that, I have to say that goes back to the COVA learning approach. There is an authenticity issue there.
Yes.
I feel as though people are not making it their students might be doing it for the assignment. Oh, turn it in. I can't move forward without people. They're not owning it. And so that, how do we cross that bridge and help them see that this is really authentic to you? And to me, it's whether or not folks are ready to have a voice in what they're doing. Are they ready for that? Do they even know how to do that? Do they feel they can actually have a voice? We know that, when we share the courses, we talk about, innovation plans and building significant learning environments and such, that we speak that language. Are they really internalizing it? Right? Are they really making it authentic for them? And I think those who get this far in the program and haven't done that, they're grappling with some bigger issues than what's been laid out for them. And to me, I'm curious what kind of workers they are. What kind of staff members are they? I mean, are they really owning are they still lost in that checklist? So, I mean, that's a hard one. That's a tough, because we deal with people like that even in our teams. I don't want to change. Mm-hmm. I have, I know what I'm doing. If it's broken, why? If it's not broken, why fix it? It's the same mentality. So they're not fully embracing. We need to do another article on authenticity. That's all I'm thinking is I need to dig into this one.
Yeah. Oh, now, Talissa, I love working with you. It's always a pleasure because you're voicing exactly what I'm thinking. And I was going to ask a question. So why do you think it's so hard for people to embrace? and you're identifying quite often our workers, or the people that are on our team, might not necessarily take ownership because they don't see the authenticity of what it is that they're doing, the authenticity of the project. Now, Dawn, you talked about working with the cohort. So in the ADL program, you work with groups of students and you do collaborate and you read each other's papers or blog posts, you coach and guide each other. And Dr. Thibodeau has identified this ownership issue and authenticity. They're not taking ownership of something that's real to them. They're just doing it as an assignment. Now, is that what you're seeing as well? And the reason I'm asking you is that you're a lot closer to this because you're currently in the program. Is there something that we're missing as experts? Is it just the authenticity? Is it that ownership, or is there something simpler? Is there something else that would contribute to not really walking the talk? What are your thoughts?
Sure. The things that come to mind for me is that vulnerability. There's years and years and years of deprogramming. So unfortunately, public ed or private ed, you go through, you get all the way to this point, and it's been a checklist. It's been do this, do this, do this, and you get this grade. And it's very hard, even for adults, even when they're reassured and coached, like, no, we want you to step outside of that. They're still looking for that. Okay, but I know you said that, but you must not mean it. A, B, C, what's the checklist? And so I think it is both the authenticity and then the vulnerability. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to take a chance. You've got to have a stupid idea because it might be an amazing idea, and so that's what I see working with my cohort is just some students are really resistant to share for Feed Forward. Some students are very, yeah. They said that we could go and just be as innovative as we want, but they must not mean it. They really are looking for this, and this. And those students that we talk about, we reflect on are the ones that succeed. I think are the ones that truly embrace the opportunity. They do accept that this is an authentic opportunity to fall flat on my face if that's what needs to happen, because I'm still going to learn from that. And I think that years and years and years of programming have taught us that failure is bad. You don't want an F, you don't want to fail, you don't want to, whatever it takes, don't fail. And everything that you're doing in the ADL program says otherwise. We learn the most from failure. We're going to be able to grow and change and find those opportunities through failure. And so I think it's maybe a combination of those things. I don't know how to make that better, but it really is just being able to buy it,
For me, there's a safety in failure. There is a safety in failure for me, but that's because I allow myself to be vulnerable to situations and see how they organically develop. And chapter 3, Learner's Mindset book, I talk a lot about failing and failing forward and what that means. You don't know how you're going to grow from that unless you put yourself out there and allow these things to happen. I can spot a perfectionist attitude right away when I see it. Somebody who's, well, it's got to be this way. And I know because I've done this a million times before, and this is how it needs to be done. Well, that's good. But if you're holding yourself to a standard that's not allowing you room to grow, you become comfortable and complacent in that area. I have found I feel strong enough on my own 2 feet to go through any type of failure, knowing that I'm going to turn that challenge into an opportunity. And that's what a failing forward is for me. There's safety in failure for me because I exist in that headspace, because I exist in the headspace of a learner's mindset. So I think you kind of wrapped up perfectly what I was thinking as well. So I'm going to pass the buck there, Dr. H, and say we all just said what each other was thinking.
Yeah, the safety and failure is a tough thing for people to embrace.
Yes.
And we share, Maxwell's ideas and from his book about failing forward, and we can point to all these things, but until you actually go down that path,
yeah, and
you do some of those, you fail rapidly, quickly, and then you get on to doing something better. It's a challenge that I think we're facing even more. My wife and I were hanging out with a group of people the other night, and one of the gentlemen, a friend of mine, he runs a major accounting firm, and getting people to show up after COVID to come back to the office was a nightmare. It's really, really hard. And now that he's finally getting people to come back, they're not working because they got used to not working. And so the reason I'm mentioning that is that you had mentioned that you've got years of an educational system, or maybe a societal system, that we are rated and graded on a checklist, and then when you come into the ADL program, we're asking you to take a look at life in a more authentic way. And perhaps not everybody wants to be an educational entrepreneur or an entrepreneur in the sense of looking for a better way. And this is something I'm starting to think about. The reason I mentioned that is my younger son is a perpetual entrepreneur. And in February, he and his business partner came up with an idea. They launched the idea in May. Here at the end of May, they launched a sweepstakes website where they give away a product, and in order to win the product, you have to buy product from them. And they just launched. They had the idea in February. It's May. They launched it, and they're already going to be doing. It's the end of May. They've got 1 week left, and they're using this principle of scarcity. And the other day they had a $1,400 day, and in order to break even, they only need to make about $500. So they're at that point where they're actually making money now. But for the first few weeks, failure, frustration. And I get to hear the successes and all the frustration as well. And the exciting thing was I was watching my son and his business partner yesterday, and they're looking at the data and trying to figure out what worked, what didn't work. So where did all that come from? Was it this? Was it that? They're analyzing. Yeah, they had a great success. Well, but what about tomorrow? There's no checklist when it comes to innovation and being an entrepreneur. You have to explore, you have to experiment, you have to analyze, right? You have to move into that higher order level of thinking, right? You have to be able to take things apart. And that checklisty approach doesn't allow for that. And I appreciate the fact that you've got years of sort of unlearning or undoing. And it is challenging. At what point did you sort of realize that you could do those things, or have you always been sort of one of those people who are always looking for a better way? You know, are you one of those intrinsic rebels who doesn't just look for the checklist? Have you always been that person who wants to do it their own way, or was there a point in the program where you realized, yeah, I could do this and really take ownership? Tell us about that key pivotal point. Was there a pivotal point, or have you always been this way?
Sure. I will be vulnerable to do so. So I struggled throughout traditional education. I definitely resonated with your built for learning, not built for school. So I struggled with learning disabilities. Reading was a huge challenge for me. Self-confidence as a result of that, like I'm not meant for school. I was straight C's. There was always an expectation that I was going to go to college. So I went directly from high school to college. But a bachelor's degree was enough for me. Like I had no aspirations of going on for an advanced degree because of those insecurities. So this followed me until 2022 when I finally got brave and started the ADL program. I had no interest in going and putting myself out there because I still had all of those ball and chain ideas that I'm not smart enough. I don't want to be vulnerable. And so the ADL program honestly has been very healing for me. It has been re-engaging that we are all capable of learning. We all have that capacity, and it really is just being bold and brave enough to be vulnerable, to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to go find out. And I think that's challenging for a lot of people, but my own experience with learning disabilities and challenges and just not enjoying school. There was nothing all that soul feeding for school for me. It was very much what they wanted, their checklist. It wasn't about what are you interested in. And so this program really flips that and allows us to look at what is important to us. Why do we do what we do? What is authentic to us? And so I would say within the first course or two, I was all in. I honestly think that it was the learner's mindset discussions way before I ever joined the program. I specifically remember Dr. Thibodeau talking about, setting your sights on the stars and not every passing ship, and the fear of failure. I went and bought the Fear of Failure book. It was very much a healing journey to even put myself into the program and to take that chance and to take that risk. it was, everything that Dr. Thibodeau experienced and shared resonated with me and gave me the courage to be brave and to take that challenge. And now it's very humbling and exciting to see that now I can share that with other people so they can be vulnerable and they can fail and it's okay. And so, like I said, I have to be really vulnerable to share that with you, but it's worth it. Everything that we're doing, it's worth it.
I really appreciate that, and I'm so excited to hear that personal stories like Dr. Thibodeau's story about striving and looking at the stars has an impact, and I hear that quite a bit. And I do really miss you from the program, to just let you know, Talissa.
Likewise.
Your stories, there are students who resonate with you much more than they resonate with this old guy with the orange suntan face here. So I appreciate that, Dawn. Now, I have another question, and since you've gone down this path, I'll push you a little bit more, or ask you to I'm going to ask you for a favor. Okay. I've got an incoming class I'm meeting with them on Monday Tuesday, because Monday's a holiday, and I have to be very candid. I am excited, but I also struggle with every new class, because I look at everything I've done and everything I've built, and I'm constantly reevaluating that, what do I do first? How do I embrace them? I don't want to scare them. I want to encourage them, but at the same time, they need to realize this. And this morning, I was thinking about, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do this. I have probably 5 or 6 different options for that very first meeting, right? And I'm constantly milling over, if I do this, it'll impact one group, but it might scare another group. And it's a perpetual lament, because I do take it very serious that these people, these young, sometimes not so young, these minds are coming into my learning environment, and they've got dreams. They may not necessarily know they've got dreams, or it's a faint dream. Well, I'm going to get a master's, I'm going to get an increase in salary, but deep down, everybody's got a dream, and I want to help people achieve those dreams, or especially for those people who are just there to get the increase in wage, to recognize, well, I can get an increase in wage, but I can also chase a dream. I want to go there. I am that delusional optimist. I want to encourage people. So in the first meeting that I have with this group on Tuesday, two things. What would you recommend that I do as an instructor? Oh, I wish this instructor would have done that. Okay. And the other thing is, if you had a chance to talk to that group, what would you encourage them to do? So 2 things. What would you tell me as an instructor to do? And then what would you encourage the group? And I'm going to ask Talissa to maybe comment on these ideas, to give you a second or 2 to think about this, so that you're not totally on the spot. Do you lament in the same way? Am I missing anything here, or did I cover this important thing, Talissa?
I think it's very valid. We struggled with that from the very beginning of time with the program. And when we were sharing and talking a bit about vulnerability, the first thing that popped into my brain is that trust factor. I think that you almost need to come out and say it to the students, and you might, but through that relationship, kind of build that consistency in terms of, I know I can be open and have that dialogue, that open, pool of meaning with my instructor. And I know that they're in my corner, even if I fail. And I think that the words, and maybe saying them more than once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times, enough for them to really hear it, because sometimes people hear it, but they don't really listen, right? They're not really taking that in, but just letting them know, I am in your corner. I will be here for you. That doesn't mean yes to everything and A to everything, right? But what that does mean is, I'm really going to help you find and learn things about yourself that maybe you don't even know. But you have to be willing to trust me and work with me, and not just me, but the process, So fast forward, and here's an example. Let me introduce you to Don Short, and so you can point to those examples of where people have crossed that bridge and talk a little bit about that journey and what that looked like for them. Point them to this learner's mindset discussion. At what point did Don get over that vulnerability and say, I'm taking a leap of faith. I'm going to try this innovation plan. Oh, but now it's got to back up and it's got to change. But that's okay. I remember students getting to 5320 at the end of the program and saying, well, I don't know if I'm going to pass because my innovation plan didn't go as planned. That's the point. Nothing goes as planned. And that's where I found safety in failure. When I fail at times, and I'm going back to this for a reason, because this ties back into what you can say that first class discussion. I wouldn't be who I am today without that. I wouldn't, because when I get at an all-time low or in my head, oh, that thinking was not where it should have been, I build from there. I find a way out from there, an avenue I never explored before, a pathway I never walked down before, an opportunity I never allowed myself to go through had I not gone through that experience. And giving the students that impression up front and consistently throughout the program is what I would do if I was teaching, multiple courses or the first course. Getting them to go deeper is vulnerable. And so how do we cross that bridge with them? We can consistently communicate that. We build relationships and we show them examples, that type of thing. Over to you, Dawn. What do you think?
Yes, all of those things. I actually wrote down delusional optimist as you were asking the question initially. Be authentic. You are a huge part of why I joined this program, Dr. Harapnik. You are contagious. So be the ball of energy, the delusional optimist that you are, because then we believe you. We buy in. We follow because that's what we know. And then as those relationships are formed, as that trust comes, as the students become vulnerable with each other. I was guilty of that probably the first 3 courses. Like, I would give all the feed forward in the world, but don't make me put my stuff out there. Like, are you kidding? You're going to judge me. So I'm real good at giving advice, not always great at taking advice. And so that was a big turning point, was taking the advice, to being the first to post my assignment, looking for feed forward. So, what can you do as an advisor for the ADL program? So putting on an old hat, there were students that would reach out and want to drop the 5305 innovation course. Oh, they don't believe my idea is good enough. I'm like, no, they're giving you feed forward. They're trying to help you grow and evolve and shape your innovation. They're not saying your innovation's stupid, but it is very much those old hangups, those old insecurities, those old things that we bring with us to these new experiences. So I guess just that building trust and helping them connect with one another. And then for your second question, it is the authenticity. I don't know how to convince people to buy in and be authentic, but it is a much more rewarding experience if you do. If you make it for you, if you make it work, if you're going to do all this work and write all these papers and do all the things that are part of the program, whether or not you buy in, you might as well buy in and let it work for you. Use it in your life, use it in your day-to-day, evolve as you use it, because then it can really grow and shape and become something transformative versus, okay, an assignment's due on this day, I'm going to meet the assignment criteria and move on, never think about that again. I think the other thing that students need to understand, and I think y'all do a great job of trying to help them, but they need to understand that this is the starting point for the rest of the program. So sometimes they get so cookie cutter checklist that they're just trying to meet the objective for this one course, not seeing that, some of it's just experience. You can't see the finish line until you get there. But if they could better understand that this is going to be an evolutionary process, something that grows and transforms throughout the program, maybe would help them see the finish line at the starting line. Does that make sense?
Oh, wow. Can I use that? See the finish
Yes,
line
please.
at the starting line. That is a good one. Oh, I have to write that down. See the finish line at the starting line. Wow. Man, that's a title for a paper, huh? Or a book.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, Don, I really appreciate that. It's an affirmation that what Dr. Thibodeau and I have built is working, and we have to keep on going down that path. And hopefully, in this discussion, people are seeing that even an old educator like me is taking lots of notes and trying to figure out how I can be better in order to help other people. And so, I get to model these things. So I really do appreciate what you shared. I appreciate the vulnerability. I often forget about that piece. Um, and it's a good reminder. So you've given me a lot of reminders of the things that are important, and uh, really encouraging people to become that delusional optimist, or have people recognize that my job is helping be successful is important. I really appreciate the key points to help that group of students. And with your permission, I'm probably going to make a little clip, and I'll get them to watch that before the first meeting or shortly after.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
So,
I invite anybody and everybody. Advising.blog is my portfolio that I've built for the ADL program. I have a collaborations page on there. So because of the learning communities and the work that we do, and on the collaborations page, I have a link to a GroupMe that I started after the new culture of learning. I really bought into the whole idea of a collective, and that people do drop in and drop out based on their interests, their availability, their schedules. And so I'm also not doing the accelerated path. I take one class at a time. And so my learning community is constantly changing and evolving as people come in and go out of the program. And I also bought in. I buy in. I want to continue to support ADL students long after my time in the ADL. And so I'm really hoping that this GroupMe will live on. And as new students join the ADL program, they have that mentorship of students that previously were in the ADL program. So yes, please share away. I want to help support everybody in this transformation, because I see what it's done for me, and I hope that it will do that for others.
excellent. I appreciate that. I have one last question, and you've
Okay.
sort of touched on that, but I think it bears maybe a little bit more reflection. Um, and I'm going to use your see the finish line at the starting line. What's your finish line look like? You've got 3 more courses to go. What's your finish line? You're in a new position. You're applying all these ideas, and I'm probably also going to qualify. Nobody's going to hold you to the finish line, because it's going to change a little bit too. And chances are, once you get there, there's many other finish lines. But what's that next finish line for you look like?
That is 100% the challenge. Like you said, the next finish line, the next finish line. As you were asking the question, I just kept thinking there is no finish line. I do have a countdown on my whiteboard here of when graduation is. Like right now, that's the finish line that I'm living for. But, you guys talked a lot in your research about how people stop using their portfolios after the ADL program. And that's just soul crushing to me. I really want to be diligent and keep my portfolio active. I know that's easy to say when you're using it on the daily basis for a program, but I do see that as a key component when this becomes part of who you are, part of your life. You guys have both done a wonderful job of maintaining a portfolio and a web presence, and that voice that really I struggled to find in the first few courses of like, I'm gonna put myself out there for the whole world to read. That's scary. So graduation is first finish line, and then really transforming this department is certainly a goal. It's never done. There is no finish line, because one project leads to the next project, leads to the next thing. There are some lingering voices in the back of my head wondering if there's a doctorate after this, and that old scared, I don't know if I'm good enough for that, always comes up. So maybe that's another finish line, something else down the road in the future. I don't know for sure what that looks like, but it really is just living that learner's mindset, embracing that next challenge, that next opportunity, whatever comes next. So I don't know that I have any next finish line in mind.
Well, I really appreciate that. Talissa, do you have any last questions, closing thoughts you have for Dawn?
Yeah, if she goes and wants to finish her doctoral degree, she can join us and start teaching in our program. That was my final thought. This has been really great. I feel that we were able to uh, touch both the student, the instructor side, and all those in between as it relates to how, the ADL has transformed our lives, but also a student life as well, and in a working environment that is, complementary to mine. And we've worked so much with you. So it's really interesting to see how this unfolds through different perspectives. Dr. H says, I'm the old white guy over there, living up in Canada. And I'm a person that's working in a leadership position on campus that has been able to take these ideas and let them come to fruition. And some things work, some things don't. And I adjust and I tweak and I move from there. And here you are in your role. And you're taking these principles and ideas that you'll grow with, that you've grown into, that you'll grow with as when you leave the ADL and move on. And you're going to find yourself cycling, because I know you're going to find yourself cycling back to all these things. And you will, and it will take some time, but you will transform those folks and, their lives in a way and touch them in a way that you never expected if you keep being persistent and you keep, modeling that learner's mindset. And I feel as though we've touched on a lot here, and I feel pretty confident about sharing this. And yeah, you're going to get used to that vulnerability. You will. Dr. H pushed me out of my comfort zone way before I thought I was ready. And here I am today, we're doing this. So yeah, that's it for me.
I will just add that you guys have done such a great job in the design of the ADL program, the COBA model. I really do feel like I have this toolbox of resources that I'm able to then pull back out on a situational basis, and those strategies, all the different things that we're covering. It really is just this toolbox that I can then use situationally as things arise. And then I wanted to thank you both so much. This is completely a fangirl moment for me. Like, you two were my idols before I ever got to meet you and know you professionally or as a student. And so I just thank you so much for asking me to join you today. And I'm really excited to help the next generation of learners. I believe in what we're doing, and I'm here to support them. So please send out my information, share it as needed. I want to help other people.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I thank both of you for being here today and embracing the notion of changing the world one learner at a time. And it is exciting. We can make such a difference. We can help people achieve things they never even thought were possible. Not just have immediate achievement, but help people to recognize it's an ongoing iterative process of continual improvement and exploration and excitement. And I think, Talissa, this is really important, and it's something that I know I'm going to be talking about on Tuesday, when I warned this first class that you're probably going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to be difficult at times. You're going to feel challenged. There's going to be angst. And I'd love to say that feeling will go away, but it won't. But what I can assure you, if you work with me and if you trust the process, you'll get used to what I refer to as learning. And you'll get used to the learning process, and it will change everything. So I'm hearing that our lives have been changed. Your life has been changed, and this discussion is wonderful. And my Tuesday is going to be great. I got so many notes. This is so good. Thank you so much, Don. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Talissa. And I think this is probably going to be one of my favorite learner's mindset discussions.
Thank y'all so much.